So you didn't just start as an owner, you worked your way up inside of DS Duggins and then you bought the company. Walk me through that path, how you got in, what you were going doing early on, and what led to the decision to actually take over ownership of the company.
Yeah, so I was 17 when I graduated high school. I had no clue what I wanted to do. Um, I thought I wanted to be a high school math teacher and then coach baseball. Baseball was my passion. Had my best season ever senior year. Led to a few D3, D2 scholarship opportunities that I decided to forego and went to UNC Charlotte. So I changed my major before I ever even stepped foot on the campus from secondary education with a focus on math to engineering, specifically construction management, engineering technology. Reason for that, 2010 when I graduated high school in North Carolina where I'm at, there were a slew of teachers that either their jobs were cut or the ones that kept their jobs had to take a pay cut. Fast forward a few years, then they start this stagger progression of how much you're going to make, when you're going to get these raises. So it's not merit based, if you will. It's just, it is what it is. And so my grandma, fortunately, she said, you don't have to be a teacher to teach. And so I took that to heart. She's like, you like math. On my dad's side of the family, they were wood framers building custom homes and apartments and things like that. So she kind of pushed me and helped me make that transition from I want to be a math teacher to, okay, let's try this engineering thing and see what happens. High school was easy for me. I never really had to study or anything, and then get to college, and that was a rude awakening. That was the hardest. It was, man. It was the hardest thing that I ever did intellectually because I had to actually sit down and force myself to study. And I'm going to classes from 8 a.m. to, depending on the day of the week, sometimes I had 9 p.m. classes. So it taught me a lot about time blocking and owning my time instead of my time owning me. But junior year, in between junior and senior year, our professors and counselors and stuff, they're pushing internships really hard. Just get something on the resume. And so, as I mentioned, baseball is my passion. I was introduced to Derek Duggins, who started and owned Duggins Welding from 1986 until I bought it in 2021. Baseball coach of mine introduced me to him. I got a paid internship, which a lot of people that was they were doing the same program I was doing. They were getting unpaid
Unpaid.
internships.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm like, all right, cool. I learned after about 2 weeks that a paid internship meant nothing but cheap labor. So I was essentially a gopher. I mean, bottom of the barrel. I didn't know what an anchor bolt was when I first walked on the job site. I was fortunate to be put with probably our best foreman at the time, who's now my operations manager. So worked out in the field for those 3 months between junior and senior year. Worked during my fall break, Christmas break, spring break. Anytime I was out of school, I was working. Went to the beach after I graduated by the grace of God and Shrek Tuttle. I've got to give him a ton of credit. He's my estimator and one of my project managers now. Grew up playing ball with him, and I swear he's one of the only reasons I graduated college. But graduated 2.9. However, that was still top 10 in my class because 9 of us graduated. Go to the beach for a week. Then I come back to work full time, and I had met with Derek prior to graduation. Like, what's this going to look like? Is it salary? Is it still hourly? Mind you, that paid internship was $13 an hour, which I thought was amazing because it was the most.
There's a lot of money back then.
Job at that point. Yeah. I remember the 2 weeks prior to going back to school for senior year, I had like 74 and 78 hours, and I think I might have cleared $800 on my check on each of those checks. But anyways, fast forward a little bit, go back to work. I'm thinking, like my peers in college, I'm going to have a nice office job. I'm going to be estimating, managing projects, some of the things that they were doing. And that was wrong too. I went back out into the field as an iron worker and literally worked my way from gopher, general labor on the ground to land decking, connecting, rigging. Like, I've done a little bit of everything that we do here at Duggins on a day-to-day basis when it comes to structural steel erection. I was out in the field for about another year and a half, and then I transitioned into the office, started estimating, managing projects, and then from about 2019, I'd say, maybe before that, Yeah, it was before that. I was 24, 25 at the time. I asked Derek if we could have a conversation. I just want to know what his exit strategy was, if he had one, what's the succession plan look like. And he probably, as a 23, 24-year-old kid, he just probably like, this guy, he ain't got a clue. And I probably didn't.
How old was he at
But
the time?
he would have been early to mid-50s or
Okay.
so.
Okay.
So we had those conversations over bourbon in his basement, and those just continued for years until May of 2020. We finally sit down with an intermediary, and he's like, "All right, here's the market value," and I'm looking at it, and I'm like, "Shit, I'm sorry, I don't know if I can cuss on here. I don't know if I can do this." It just seemed impossible.
It was a big number.
Luck, it is. $2.1 million, and I was making $45,000 a year at the time. And I'm like, is this even attainable? And so we're running through different scenarios. What could be? Is it even a possibility? And so through all this time, through those conversations, my wife and I, we were 100% in on the Dave Ramsey plan. So we had no debt other than our house. We were saving every penny that we could, which I think we had a combined income of maybe 80, 85,000 a year at the time. I did get a raise. I was making 60,000 a year for about a year and a half prior to the acquisition. We had one job that I had worked on, budgeted off and on for a year and a half, 2 years. And we did literally everything for this. It was a pedestrian bridge. Really unique job, not something that we do a lot of. We were connecting 2 different buildings together over an existing road.
Very
One of the
cool.
buildings we put the still up on. And I priced it. It was a negotiated project, so it was almost name your price.
Mm-hmm.
And I worked it up. I said, here's what our margin's going to be. I was off by 0.5%. But because of that project, that quarter, I got like a $36,000 bonus, which went straight to the bank. We refinanced our house down from a 30 to a 12-year, back when interest rates were nothing. I've still got like a 2.5% rate on my house. That was 2019, 2020. So then we get to 2021, again, meet with the intermediary May of 2020. It's a 15, 16-month process. Where am I going to come up with the money? The only way we were able to do it was an SBA loan, which required 10% down. I didn't have 10% to put down. So we used every penny that we had in savings, leveraged our house with a HELOC 100%, and that got us barely to the 5% of the 10. Fortunately, Derek, he seller financed the other half of it so that I could achieve that down payment. And here we are now.
Dude, what a cool story. And as a fellow UNCC 49er, it makes me nothing happier than seeing 49ers be successful out there. Why did he agree to sell it to you as opposed to somebody else where he probably could have gotten a little bit more out of it, didn't have to sell or finance it? Why do you think he decided you're the guy to, take over the business and keep his legacy going?
I wonder that too, and it's pure speculation on my end. But I will say, I do feel like I was instrumental in the growth that we had, because when I started, we were doing about 2 million top line a year. So really small company, 20, 25 team members. I moved into the office and we just gradually progressed, continued to grow from 2 to 2.5 to 3 to 3.2. And then for 3 years prior to the acquisition, on average, we were doing about 4 million a year. So I feel like I was instrumental in doubling the revenue, helping him make more money. And he knew through those conversations throughout the years, like I wanted to continue to grow. But where he was at that point, once we get closer to closing, he's 60, 61. He didn't want to continue to invest more money, go into debt for more equipment, things like that.
Because it needed that. If it was going to grow, it needed capital investments.
We needed to spend a bunch in CapEx to get more equipment, to hire more people. Payroll's going to go up. They've got to have the equipment to work off of on the job sites. And so I think that was a big part of it. And two, like, as an owner, he was as involved as he needed to be, which was great in my opinion. I think the more that owners can be out of the business, the more valuable that business is, because it's essentially running on itself with the systems and processes that are put in place. But he saw my vision. I think he could see me taking it to where we've gotten to and even further. And so I think that had a lot to do with it. And two, he didn't take it to the market to sell. Like I approached him.
And he didn't have any kids. He didn't have any kids that he could turn it over to or that he wanted to turn it over to.
He's got two daughters. One of them is involved in his other business, Muddy Creek
Okay.
Motorsports. They do custom hospitality and stuff. So he's got that daughter that's probably in the succession plan there. His other daughter had no interest in either of those businesses. She's doing her
Got
own
it.
thing, and they've got a great relationship and everything. It's just career wise, it's not something
Yeah.
he wanted to do.
Well, when you made the decision that you were going to buy the company, what did you think you were stepping into? And you also had an understanding, but when you really take over ownership and you start to look under the hood and see everything, what was it that you actually stepped into versus what you thought you were
Man,
stepping into?
yeah, ignorance is bliss, right? I had no idea. I mean, I knew the things that he and his wife were doing on the admin side, and I knew taxes were going to be higher, and I knew there'd be payroll taxes and stuff, but I wasn't the one implementing that and physically doing it, right? So when I first bought it, I was still the only estimator. I was managing most of the projects. We had an operations manager, but he was more, making sure the right crews get to the right jobs, the equipment gets there. So I'm estimating, I'm managing projects. And then, oh, by the way, you've got to run payroll every week. You've got to pay the payroll taxes every week. You've got to meet with the CPAs. You've got to build a business plan to forecast what you're going to do and look ahead. And oh, again, by the way, you don't get paid for 30, 60, 90 days after you send that first invoice. So all of that, I had a general overview, right? I knew what was going on, but I jumped in the deep end and I was treading as hard as I could to stay above water. Fortunately, I had, it doesn't sound like a lot, and especially not where we're at now, but I had 350,000 in operating costs that was included in the loan. Took over very end of October, so just call it November. Every check that came in from the signing date of the acquisition that was dated prior to that went straight to Derek and Tammy, his wife. Everything
Hmm.
after that was in mine. So I had to wait until it was middle of January before I ever collected my first check. And I remember that week I had $11,000 in my operating account, and I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to make payroll. I don't know. Like, I've got a line of credit, but I'm scared to use it. I don't have the HELOC that I can lean on because we leveraged that 100%. Like, it
That
was
was to
it was
purchase the
scary,
business. Yeah.
right? So it was scary early on, but for whatever reason, I've been blessed, and I've got a favor of God, and it just seems like every time things like that happen, even to today, it always works out. Back in January of 22, the checks started coming in, made payroll. You can't see it behind me, but I've got the very first dollar of profit that I ever earned framed just because
That's
I
cool.
remember that day, and I'm like, dude, not that I made it, but we're finally gaining some traction.
That's so cool, man. So let me ask you this. You brought it up a little bit earlier. He was involved as much as he needed to be, and you appreciated that. How much of the business today, now that you've been owner for a good number of years, still runs through you? For example, if you stepped away for 90 days, what do you think would break down first?
The most involved I am in the business is still on the financial side of things. We could run. I feel confident we could run pretty smoothly for 60, 90 days without me being present. And the reason I say that, it hasn't been that way for very long. I hired an assistant back in September, and she has been a lifesaver for me. She's
Mm,
given me at least 20 hours a week back. I'm not the one having to enter the bills, to physically pay the bills. Yeah, I still have to sign the checks, but um, yeah, I would say it's definitely been a process, right? I didn't change a whole lot when I first bought it, but over time, I've gradually implemented new systems and new processes and new softwares and hired new people and things like that. So um, we're in a good position, but there's still a ton of room to improve on systems, processes, and grow.
and like you said, businesses become more valuable when they're not dependent upon the owner on a day-to-day basis. So totally get on the operational side. On the financial side, are you putting systems in place where you don't have to be the guy, you know, handling all of the financial decisions and moving the big rocks from a financial? Obviously, you need to be informed, you need to be part of it, but are you creating leverage for yourself on the financial side as well of the operation of the business?
Yeah, when it comes to hiring, firing, day to day stuff, I am minimally involved. My operations manager, he's bringing the guys in. We've got a training tower out back. We can take the guys out there. They walk in, they say they can do X, Y, Z.
Show
Alex,
me.
my
Yeah,
operations manager, exactly. Come out here and show me. So when it comes to things like that, day to day, I'm not very involved at all. The
good.
big decisions, are we going to buy a piece of equipment that's 100,000, 500,000, $750,000? Yeah, I'm going to be involved in that. But,
Sure.
the day to day stuff, I empower them to make those decisions. I trust them. And right or wrong, we're flowing pretty well.
That's awesome, man. Let me ask you this next question. Nobody likes it, just to prepare you, but it matters. If something happened to you, you die right now, what happens to the company? Is there someone in place that could actually step in and run it, or would it start to struggle pretty quickly because there's no defined leadership? I see it a lot. Guys build great businesses, but if something unexpected happens, there's no clean way for the family or the company to transition. It just gets messy. What have you thought of in
Yeah.
that way?
If something happens, and we've got it in our trust and our wheels, if something happens to me, I pass away, ownership goes to my wife Nicole, Alex and Trey, my two right hand men, so to speak. They're going to continue running day to day operations. On the financial side, my CPA is going to get involved, and then ultimately it's going to be Nicole's decision. Does she want to continue, or does she want to sell, or whatever?
What do you think she would say?
We've got 5-year-old twin boys at home right now. She's got 2 full-time jobs there. I would say she would probably sell.
And so then it becomes a liquidity question at that point, right? Whatever the business is worth, whatever the business enterprise value is, and then whatever a buyer is willing to pay for it, would the business, she does have a full-time job being a full-time mom, 2 of them. Would the business be able to provide the financial security until the liquidation event could happen? Or, is it better to just have a liquidity event take place upon your death? Again, things that we think about from an uncommon wealth perspective, because the audience for this podcast, as you know, because we've talked about it, are business owners, operators, founders, and we're asking those questions that people. Dave Ramsey doesn't talk about this kind of stuff, right? Because he's talking to the masses, rice and beans, beans and rice, save your money, invest your money, things like that. But this is operational business kind of thing. So just wanted to put that out there. I would agree. Your legacy is, what you've built for your family and the financial security that you provide for your family. I would argue most spouses don't want to take over ownership of the business, right? The operational value of it.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, there's a few things that we've got set up if something like that happens. Another is we're going to get in touch with Ron Buck, the intermediary that facilitated the acquisition whenever we bought it, to help with that as well.
That's
So
awesome.
yeah, it's and aside from business, I've got the life insurance policy. So financially, my family's going to be okay if I kick the bucket.
Yeah. Does the business have a policy on you too? From that
Yeah,
regard? Okay.
yeah, it's a smaller policy.
Sure.
And actually, it was required by the SBA whenever we were going through that
Because that
whole
would pay
acquisition
off the loan,
process.
or that would have paid off a huge portion of the loan if you died prematurely. I guess what I'm asking about as well is it's like a key man policy, right? Where if you
Yeah,
died, it puts capital into the company to give it time to bring in the intermediary to find a buyer for it, so that it doesn't really start eating into the reserves of the business operational value. But sounds like you've already thought about that too. While we're talking about money, um, let's talk about real money. Where is most of your net worth tied up today? Is it in the
Oh,
business?
70% is in the business, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And then in the business itself, where's the value? Is it equipment, contracts, future work? Like, how does that break down?
Yeah, I would say the majority is what a lot of people are going to call goodwill, right? The being
Okay,
established, having those contracts, the work forecast, the AR that's already there, the assets themselves. I mean, I would say that's a tenth of the business value.
got it. As the business grows, so does, like you already mentioned, the payroll taxes because you're employing more people. And how is the business structured today? What corporate structure? LLC, S corp, C corp?
We're
How's
an
it
S
set up?
corp. We're an S corp.
So any profitability you have in the business flows straight through to your personal tax return as a 1099. So as the business does better, your tax bill goes up as well. That's just part of the
Ain't
game.
that some ain't that some shit?
Well,
It
there's
doesn't
tax
it doesn't
mitigation.
matter if I take a draw and actually realize any of that money or not. I'm gonna pay taxes on it.
Yeah. I mean, we could probably talk offline about some tax mitigation strategies, but that's just part of the game. When did you start thinking about taxes as something you actually needed to plan around, not just something to deal with at the end of the year?
Year one, we were really successful out the gate after I took over. A lot of that being because I was still selling everything. You know, when I say selling everything, I was bidding 2, 3x what I had been just to make sure that we had the backlog there to keep the house busy. So yeah, taxes were a conversation that we had early on. Um, when I bought the business, it was a stock purchase tax. That's an asset purchase. More beneficial for Derek, the previous owner, but that meant I inherited the tax ID number, the name, the bank accounts, the CPA, like everything just basically transferred. The only thing that was
Hmm.
different was the stock holder. And so I got some pretty bad advice from the CPA that I inherited. She's like, well, I mean, you're probably not going to pay taxes for 2 or 3 years based on the assumption that we were just going to stay stagnant, right?
Mm.
That did not happen. I mean, what I could have written off in the from the purchase, it was like 600,000, but we were 2x that on bottom line the first
Mm.
year. So needless to say, I got a different accountant, and then we start looking at not just tax filing, but tax strategy, right? So what can we do? What do we need to do in order to bring that taxable income down? What kind of equipment do we need? Now, I'm not going to go buy something for $100,000 to save 25,000, 30,000 in taxes, right? It's got to be something that's going to generate more revenue and more income. But yeah, year one is when I got intentional in working with a qualified CPA on tax strategy, not just tax filing.
And it comes at you fast, right? If you're not thinking of it. So good for you for thinking about that. Let me do another transition. Now you've got Echelon. By the way, I'm wearing my Echelon
Love,
shirt.
I love the shirt.
And
Love the shirt.
I did a video when I was out of the country not too long ago, a couple days ago. I did a video and I had my Echelon pullover on, and I got a lot of comments on it in person. I got a lot of comments. Ooh, I really like your sweater. So good gear, and your
That's
hat and
awesome.
your shirt. You got your Masters colors on right now. This is a completely different type of business than obviously steel construction. So I'm curious, what led to that?
Yeah. Well, prior to Echelon, and even prior to acquiring Duggins, I launched West White Beard Company, named after my twin boys, Weston and Wyatt. Um, Similar.
We're gonna have links to that in the description of the podcast to DS Duggins to Echelon and your beard company as well.
Yeah. But specifically, speaking to Echelon, number one, I love golf. You and I are in M19 together, met at Pinehurst. Bunch of great business leaders getting together, talking about similar issues regardless of the scale of business that we're in. It's funny, you could do $1 billion in revenue and have the same issues as someone doing 500,000 a year.
Yeah.
So it's really good to get in those kinds of rooms. But I started Echelon for a few different reasons. One, I love golf. Two, the creative side of my brain never stops. Nor does the other side. Although I don't sleep very well.
Mhm.
But I'm looking in my closet and I've got 60, 70 different polos, and I might have worn 12 of them. I'm like, why did I even buy that one? Like, just impulse decision. And so I'm like, similar to West Y, whenever I was buying beard products and spending, a couple $100 on just a few products, I'm like, I bet I could design something that I really like. And I think other people would like it too. So I started the process and, I asked Nicole, I'm like, how much you trust me? And she's like, why are you asking me that? I
The
said, I want to
fact that
start
you're
another
asking
business.
me.
I want to start another business. She's like, okay, that's number five. What do you want to do now? Because we got Duggins, we got West Y, and then two of them are real estate investments. One's a short-term rental, one's a commercial property that this office sits on. So those I don't really consider real businesses. Yeah, the
But they
short-term rental
are.
generates revenue. They are legally. I got to
It's
pay
a tax
every year to
strategy more
keep.
than anything. Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
but she's like, I mean, I trust you. What do you want to do? And I told her I wanted to start a golf apparel company. She's like, don't you have enough polos? I'm like, that's exactly why I want to start it. I want stuff that I can create that I know I'm going to like, that I'm going to wear. So start talking to, 12 different suppliers and narrowed it down to a short list, three or four, settled on one, didn't sell. I landed on one, decided to move forward, and they weren't the cheapest, but they were the most reputable. They're working with a lot of the big brands that any golfer would recognize already. So I spent just over a year just in R&D, working on designs, getting samples, modifying the status chart and the dimensions and all that kind of stuff. So one is a love for the game. Two is the creative side of it. It allows me to keep that side of the brain rolling. And three, Echelon is really intentional on trying to gravitate towards the grinders. We call it the 1% club. If you buy anything from Echelon, you're part of the 1% club. And it's not the typical 1% club that you hear about on the media from mainstream media. It's the people that are grinding every day to get just 1% better. Not just as a golfer. Obviously, being a golf apparel brand, that's what we're selling. We're selling the golfers. But to be a better husband, to be a better dad, to be a better Christian, to be better in all aspects of life. And I just don't see the purpose from a lot of these other brands, albeit great brands out there, super saturated market, and it's going to be really hard to break through. But just the purpose that I have is to help everybody that I come across become the best version of themselves. And so when someone puts on an Echelon polo or a hoodie or pants, shorts, hats, we got it all. They hopefully resonate and know the intention behind it.
Well, and I think when people do and they're tied to a brand emotionally, they will support that brand over a long period of time. The quality has to remain, right? The look has to be appealing. But given Echelon versus another ABC company that I've got no emotional tie to, that's absolutely right. So I think it's not just getting the apparel awareness out there, but it's also getting the messaging and the story awareness out there, getting people to follow you guys emotionally before they follow you because they like your gear, right? And I think that that's smart, Echelon, because when everything is tied as a business owner to one operating business, that is a tremendous amount of concentration risk. And I talk with business owners all the time about creating investment accounts, creating real estate portfolios, creating non-correlated assets to their primary operating business, even if it's good business. Do you think more owners should be thinking that way, the way you're thinking?
I do because of the things that you say, but not to negate anything that I just said, I also believe you've got to get really good at one thing before you branch out and start to try and generate revenue, or even if it's not generating revenue, have other avenues of leverage. Like if we weren't successful at Duggins, I wouldn't have been able to buy that short-term rental. I wouldn't have
Fair,
been able to start Echelon.
fair.
So yes, I think you do need other avenues, but I think before you do that, you've got to get really good at one thing first.
Yeah, yeah, agreed. 100% agree. You can't be mediocre and then start another mediocre thing and start a like get really good. But once that thing is really good, whatever it is, and it's a huge part of your net worth, to start looking at diversification options. So let me ask you this, because this is where most people don't stop and think. What does wealth actually mean to you? Not revenue, not growth, wealth. Is it control, freedom, optionality? And what do you think most guys spend? they spend years building something without ever really structuring it to last. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think a lot of people tie being rich to being wealthy and kind of equate the two. I mean, if you look at any average person in America, we are rich by the world standards, considering what other people live on day to day. Wealth to me is far more than financial freedom. That's definitely one part of it, right? If my family and I decide we want to go on a cruise or on a vacation and we're staying for a week and we decide we love it so much we're going to stay for another week, we have the freedom and the ability to do that. But more importantly is legacy, right? Like I'm not working my ass off every single day just for the sake of working. Do I enjoy working? Yeah, but I don't want that to define who I am, right? I want to be present everywhere I'm at. So especially with my kids and my wife, I spend far more time working than I do with them. But when I'm with them, I'm with them. And so teaching them the value of a dollar, what a good work ethic is, understanding, and my kids are 5 right now, so they don't know how much money we've got in the bank. They don't care. They just want to go outside and play. But when we get to the point that they have that understanding that we're doing better than most, don't take it for granted and understand what it took to get there. Because the way I came up, we didn't have a pot to piss in.
Yeah.
And money's not everything, but it sure does help. I've been really broke, and I've had a little bit of money, and you've got problems either way, and it's hard either way. But
Hmm.
having financial stability makes it a little bit easier to solve some issues. People say money can't buy you happiness, and I tell them they're shopping in the wrong store. One happiness is just a state of mind. It's a feeling,
Yeah.
right? It's temporary. Contentment and fulfillment is what you're going for, and that's part of being wealthy, right? Being content with what you have, being thankful, being grateful, um, and again, leaving a legacy. Like all the stuff that I have, when I walk through the pearly gates, I'm going to have a mansion that I could have never imagined having here on earth. And while it's cool and I can go to the beach and I've got the beach house and we can enjoy that, it doesn't define me. Like I didn't have it before. If I don't have it 2 years from now, oh well, whatever. But as long as I can raise my kids to be good kids and turn into great men, um, give them something, if they want to get involved in business, it's there for them. I'm not going to force it. I'm not going to push it. But just, establishing who we are, what it means to be a Burick, and just teaching them again, good work ethic, be honest, treat everybody the way you want to be treated, old golden rule, right? That's what wealth is to me.
I love it, man. I love it. And I think you hit the nail on the head. And I really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule, both all your multiple businesses, being a dad, being a father, in the middle of your golf game, the different podcasts you do. Thanks for coming on to this one. I appreciate it. And if you're listening to this, if you're an owner, you might want to think about a few things. If you're not there, what happens to the business? If you need liquidity, could you get it? And is what you've built actually structured, or is it just operating? And then are you creating wealth and legacy? Zach, thanks for joining, man. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. Yes, sir.